Tell me about your relationship and like how you grew up with your brothers.
Well, first of all, we were what you would call today latchkey kids. Our parents were rarely home because they had the grocery store, so we hardly had time together. Um, but we didn't form the kind of bond that I see other people have with their siblings. I was the middle kid, but you know, Mark was 3 years older than me. Was it 3 years? I can never remember. 3 years older than me. So he was always in a different school. He had different friends. And Barry was younger, and Barry wasn't into sports. He didn't, I don't know what Barry liked, but it wasn't like, he played games with us and everything, but it wasn't like we formed any kind of a bond. Um, I did have a resentment towards my older brother, which he may not even know about today, but I felt that because he was the oldest and the first, he was always looked at as the smartest and the brightest, and he was able to do things that I wasn't because my parents couldn't afford anything. So he got to go to sleepaway camp, and I never got to go to. I got to go one time to summer camp. It wasn't even sleepaway camp. He joined this group called the Lancers, and he got to go to Boy Scout camp. In fairness to him, he joined all these things. He was much more social than me. So he joined, where I went to Cub Scouts and liked Cub Scouts because of the cool uniform. He liked Boy Scouts and liked doing what Boy Scouts did. And so we went to Boy Scout camp over the summer, sleepover camp. Um, and when it came to like things like Hebrew school, I hated and dreaded every second of Hebrew school. Mark excelled at Hebrew school to the point where the rabbi wanted him to go to the yeshiva, and he was even thinking of doing that. And so, he was the shining star in school. He went to college, and my parents didn't have a lot of money, so you know I know that he had to take out student loans, but I also know that they paid for him to go to college, and not just to go to college, but to go to college and stay in a dorm and all that. Where with me, there was no discussion of college. And when it was finally time for me to go to college, my mother had saved these silver dollars that every time my grandfather, her father, saw us kids, he gave us each a silver dollar, a real silver dollar. She put them away and used those for me to buy books with. But as far as everything else, I had to, I went and worked to pay my way through college. So there was some resentment there. And I don't know, that may be a bad thing, but it wasn't the kind of resentment that spilled over to where Mark could feel it, I don't think. Um, he was the kind of brother that he would defend me if a bully in the neighborhood picked on me. He would be right there in front of me saying, "Come on, you want to fight me?" That kind of thing. So he did take a protective stance against me, but we didn't have a bond. And the same thing with Barry. We didn't have a bond. Barry didn't like the same things I did. Barry didn't read, didn't like to read. Um, he he really liked my cousin Alan, and Barry learned to play guitar, and they tried to form a rock band at like 12 years old. But you know, it was just the kind of thing where we were all three very different, independent kids, and we raised ourselves practically. During the day, we'd come home from school, and my parents would be at work, um, and so we didn't form any kind of real bond. And even to this day, we love each other, and we would do anything in the world for each other. But at the same time, we don't have the kind of bond where we call each other every week or even every 2 weeks. We just never grew into that. We're just three very different people. As I said, I was very much a bookworm into the arts. Um, I know I used to drive them crazy because I used to sing all the time. And if at night, probably this is something you may not even know, I used to do a thing they used to call knocking. And this was when I was only like 6 or 7 years old. But I would bang my head on the pillow and sing at night. Well, Barry shared a room with me. He used to hate it. And they tried to do everything they could to get me to stop, and it just didn't work. I sang all the time, and I read books all the time, and so, they had totally different interests. We all had to, they didn't read the way I did, they didn't like the same kind of music that I did. And so, we went to ball games together occasionally, we did some things together, but we never hung out together. As we got older, there was never a kind of thing like, hey, let's go hang out with our friends, because we all had different friends. And so, we are what we are. We're three brothers, as I said, who love each other and would do anything in the world for each other, but we don't have a bond of similarity that keeps us together.